afternoon, everyone. I am here to discuss to you about the privilege tax and value-added tax. So first, we will discuss the privilege tax, and after that, we will discuss the value-added tax. So let's begin. So what is a privilege tax nga ba? According to the book, a privilege tax is a tax laid upon the privilege of engaging in business or pursuing an occupation, calling, or profession. Meaning, a privilege tax is a tax to have a right to conduct a business in the location. Privilege tax, it is also known as franchise tax because it refers to the special privilege conferred by the government on an individual or corporation which not belong to the citizen by common right. So, for deep understanding, if the business owner like to open a business, or if the person would like to open a business, she or he needs to pay a privilege tax so that the government give him a license to operate in the said location.
Example: the privilege tax.
Hi, attorney. Good evening. Sorry I'm late. Oh, attorney, thank you for accepting my invitation and, thank you for your time.
Sus, wala yun. It's my pleasure. So, what we're going to discuss is
So, we're going to discuss for tonight is, I'm thinking for the past few months, I want sana na, to start a business. So, I called you because I want to have a consultation first so that I want to know if what taxes and what permits should I pay first to operate my business and my business will be legal.
Honored Miss Roxine, na ako yung napili mo na isa sa mga mag-consult about your business. And yun nga, lagi ko sinasabi sa mga client ko na it's a wise decision to have a consultation first before doing or starting their business. And since hindi siya madali and risk siya, once na may mali kang step na nagawa is wala na. And in establishing a business, it is a common to pay tax even you will establish a sari-sari store. And makikita nga natin na kapag tayo kumakain sa mga restaurant or nag-grocery, meron tayong binabayaran mga tax. And yun, sa case natin, kahit na magtatayo tayo ng business, we should pay tax. And in your case, it is a large business, and you should also pay permits and taxes so that you can have a license to operate. One of those taxes is a privilege tax.
Sorry to interrupt you, attorney, but can I ask what is privilege tax because it's a new word for me?
It means, Ms. Roxine, before you operate your business, you need to pay first the privilege tax. Because once you pay the privilege tax, you will have a license to operate. Meaning your business will be legal and you will be registered in the BIR. Also, once you registered in BIR, you have the power to collect the value-added tax. You're welcome as always, Mr. Roxine. And what's now? You're going to pursue your business? Okay, see you again next week so that we can process your paper. Thank you, Mr. Roxine. I have an urgent. Let's see you next week. See you. Thank you.
End. Nature of privilege tax.
Nature of privilege tax is not passed to tax on property or person, it is passed to raise revenue.
power to impose and increase privilege taxes.
For the power to impose and increase privilege taxes, there are two: the power of legislature to impose taxes, and the power of imposing a privilege tax is not exhausted once exercised. There are four kinds of privilege taxes under the tax codes. It includes the VAT or value added tax, other percentage tax, excise taxes, and documentary stamp taxes. A person may be subject to the taxes although he or she is not engaged in any business. Meaning, kahit na ang isang tao is not involved in the business, they are also subjected to pay tax. So, what is business nga ba according to the law? According to the tax codes, business in the trade or commercial sense only, meaning trading or commercial is the sense of business which the purpose is to gain profit or the motive is livelihood. Meaning, the business owner is not opening or establishing a business because they establishing it for to gain profit or to give an employment to the citizen. Mean to engage in business. First is to engage in business is to begin and be on a business or to enjoy or involve oneself therein. Sabi dito, malalaman mo na kapag ang isang tao is engaged or into the business, kailangan daw mag-umpisa siyang bumuo ng negosyo tapos palalaguin niya to. Next is, business is that which occupies the time, attention, and labor of men for livelihood or profit. Sinasabi naman dito, ang pagnenegosyo daw ay seryosong bagay na kailangan mo ng buong attention, time, and pagtatrabaho. Hindi mabubuo yung isang negosyo kapag may nawalang isa doon. For example, you have only attention and labor in your business, pero yung oras mo is tutok ka sa ibang bagay. So, hindi fulfill ng efforts mo yung profit na sinasabi kasi kulang ka sa oras. Nawalan ka ng isang aspect, which is dapat kakasama yon: oras, attention, and labor of men. Lastly is, to engage in business is construed as signifying employment which occupies the time, attention, and labor also for the purposes of a livelihood or profit. Dito man, sinasabi na in order to engage in business, kailangan mo yung three aspect na nabanggit kanina, yung time, attention, and labor of men. Kapag kulang ka dito is hindi mag-work yung business mo. And kung talagang gusto mo or desidido ka na maging maayos yung business mo, is dapat you have to sacrifice things para makapagbigay ka ng sapat o higit na oras sa negosyo mo, and yung attention mo is buong buo and focus ka lang sa bagay na yon. At syempre, hindi dapat mawawalan ng sipag, commitment, tsaka yung dedikasyon mo is dapat nandun.
When single act deemed transaction in business.
Next is when single act deemed transaction in business. Tax are imposed for person who is engaged in sale, barter, or exchange of merchandise. For example, a person prepares to carry a business of a wholesale tobacco dealer and holds himself out and solicits trade as such, although he makes only one sale without a license. If he intends to continue the business, engage in business in the meaning of the law. Meaning, if even the person is bought an item and sold it tomorrow, it will be considered a business according to the meaning of the law. So now, let's move on to the value-added tax. So, value-added tax is makikita natin to kahit saan: resibo ng grocery, resibo ng mga resto, resibo ng mga services na kinukuha natin. And I know that all of you know what is VAT, but to have a deeper understanding, let's discuss the value added tax or VAT. According to the book
Value-added tax VAT is a consumption tax imposed at every stage of the distribution process on the sale, barter, exchange including transactions deemed by law as a sale or lease of goods or properties, and rendition of services in the course of trade or business or on the importation of goods, whether such imported goods are for use in the business or not.
sabi dito, yung VAT ay tax na charge or kinokollect sa sales of goods or services ng isang negosyo or ng isang seller, and it is required to collect it to their customer and to remit to the government.
Nature of VAT.
For the nature of VAT, the tax called VAT because it is imposed on the value not previously subjected to the VAT on the value added to the goods or services at each stage of the distribution chain. First, VAT is a privilege tax. Yung VAT is di daw ginawa para sa product. Ginawa yon para sa pagbebenta ng produkto. Meaning, as long as na hindi mo nabebenta yung product, wala kang makukuha na value added tax. Wala kang makukuha kahit piso. Kahit na sa consumer mo sinisingil yung VAT, yung nagbebenta pa rin yung liable na magbayad ng VAT sa government. Next is, it is an ad valorem tax. Meaning, habang tumataas yung price, tataas din yung value ng VAT. Tataas yung price, tataas yung value ng VAT. Next is an indirect tax. VAT is transferable. From the word transferable, pwede nating i-transfer yung VAT from VAT registered person na babayad to the sure na singilin ng VAT registrars. Lastly, it is ultimately a tax on consumption, meaning yung percentage na VAT ng Philippines is fixed, which is 12% only. According to pwede taasan since nasa loto ng Philippines. And kapag binago mo yung VAT percentage mo, pwede kang hulihin ng IR. So let's proceed to the VAT system.
The VAT system.
First is tax release. It means that the former tax system replaced to taxing goods and services than those subject to excise tax. Let's consider an example where a business is subject to the original tax of 12% on its gross sales. And if the business sells goods with a total of 10,000 pesos, it will calculate the sales tax as 12% of the gross sales, which amounts to 1,200 pesos. The total amount that the business would receive from the customers, including the sales tax, would be 11,200. Next is subsequent sales. It is a tax imposed on every sale after the original sale of taxable article. For instances, if a manufacturer sells a product to a distributor for 1,000 pesos and they will charge the regular sales tax of 12%, resulting in a tax of 120 pesos. And the total amount that the distributor should pay would be 1,120 pesos. And if the distributor later sells the same product to a retailer for 1,200, they would be charged the subsequent sales of 12,000 on this subsequence. The subsequent sales tax would amount to 144, which is 12% of 1,200. So making the total amount paid by the retailer would be 1,344. For the advanced sales tax imposed on the importation of goods, the purpose of this is the advance payment is to ensure the tax authority receives tax revenue upfront and to prevent potential tax evasion or cash flow issues by collecting a portion of the sale tax in advance. The tax authority can ensure timely payment and reduce the tax and reduce the risk of non-compliance. The payment man, the advanced sales tax is usually payable at the time of importation or shortly thereafter. It is important to comply with the payment deadline specified by the tax authority to avoid any penalties or interest charges. For compensating tax, it is imposed on the importation of goods for non-business use, meaning compensation tax or compensating tax, meaning compensating tax form of tax levied on imported goods to offset any potential revenue loss resulting from the exemption or reduced rate of value-added tax or sales tax on such goods. The purpose of compensating tax is to ensure a level playing field between domestically produced goods and imported goods. It aims to prevent tax avoidance or unfair competition by imposing equivalent tax burden on imported goods for personal use. Next is excise tax. Excise tax imposed on a certain article, like matches, solvents, and videotapes payable by manufacturers or importers. Um, is miller tax imposed on the production or milling of certain agricultural products like rope, sugar, coconut, and palm oil, cassava flour, and desiccated coconut. Um, For deep understanding, let's consider a VAT-registered miller who produces and sells rice, and the miller is subject to VAT and is required to charge VAT on the sale of wet flour to their consumer or customer. Suppose the miller sells 1,000 kilograms of rice at selling price of 2 pesos per kilogram and the VAT rate is 12%. The VAT registered miller would calculate the VAT amount as follows. VAT amount equals selling price times VAT rate. Lastly is percentage taxes payable by contractor, brokers, lessors or personal property and lessors or distributors of cinematographic films. Um, Dito naman sa percentage taxes, specific types of taxes that are calculated as a percentage of certain transaction or activities. Next is advantages. Value-added tax or VAT has several advantages which contribute to its popularity and implementation in countries. The advantages of VAT are: it eliminates the cascading problem experienced under the former sales tax, particularly the subsequent tax, because only the value-added tax to the sale is subject thereto. Um, Meaning, one of the significant advantages of value-added tax compared to the former sales tax is the elimination of cascading problem, also known as tax cascading or tax pyramiding. Avoidance of tax on tax. VAT is designed to be a multi-stage tax system where the tax is applied at each stage of supply chain. Unlike the former sales tax, VAT first eliminates the cascading problem experienced under the former sales tax, particularly the subsequent tax, because only the value-added tax to the sale is subject thereto. Next is in its ideal form. VAT is neutral between different goods, properties, and services or businesses, and therefore more equitable because it generally applies to all persons and transactions at uniform rate. Dito pumapasok yung equal treatment sa pagbayad ng tax kahit na same industry or magkaibang industry kayo, and regardless size, scale of operation, or market presence, the businesses are subject to the same VAT, which is 12% only according to the rules and regulation. And this ensures a level playing field and avoidance using or giving undue advantages to specific businesses over others. Next is establishes a wider tax base, making taxation fairer and more equitable. Um, VAT treats all businesses in the same industry or sector equally, regardless nga sa size niya, scale of operation, or market presence niya. Next is it is simply easy to administer and to comply with because it provides for only two rates, replacing a number of percentage taxes. Next is payments are now based on the output tax and the input tax, as supported by receipts, thereby minimizing tax evasion. Um, VAT requires businesses to maintain proper records and documentation, including the invoices, receipts for VAT returns. By basing VAT payments on the input taxes and output taxes supported by these receipts, the tax authority by the accuracy of VAT payments, and transparency helps ensure the integrity of the tax system and reduce the risk of tax evasion. Lastly, is expected to generate large revenues. Typically applies to a variety of businesses during various parts of the economy. This tax is ensure that each portion of this tax being ensured to a portion of economic activity is subject to VAT. As a result, the hotel revenue base for VAT substantial.
I hope that you learned something from